So this is the GTA. It's the car that I built several years ago, an ongoing project, and unfortunately the speedo trip meter has stopped working, so I've got to build a new one. So this is the engine bay. The engine is a Kawasaki ZZR 1100 motorcycle engine, and the prop shaft comes out of there. So what I've done, let me turn the ignition on. What I've done is I've got magnets stuck to the prop shaft, and as the prop shaft turns, it fires my little sensor. This is a bench lash up of my speedometer. So let's turn the ignition of the car on. There we go. So that's the C++ code that the little Arduino board is using, but that's not greatly important. Now this bit is a bracket which is going to mount the servo, which is going to be my speedo needle, and the little OLED display and the Arduino board. So the printer's just finishing off the mounting brackets. Now the Arduino needs to go into this little piece of breadboard in its connector, so I will solder that in. Fantastic stuff, Blue Tack. So I've drawn my speedo in Open Office Draw and printed it out, laminated it. My daughter kindly cut it out for me because she's neater at stuff like that. So that is going to stick on the front. This is the almost finished thing. So I've got my 3D print with the radio controlled car type servo mounted in it. That's the display mounted in there. Everything's wired up, got the Arduino plugged into my little circuit board. So let's see if this works. Try not to stick the connectors into the wrong socket because that will blow my Arduino to bits. Ah, look, it works. Right, let's try and get some pulses into it. Ignition on. And there we are. So this is the trip meter for the petrol. So the idea is when I fill it with petrol, I can reset the trip meter and it will record my mileage. This is the speed. Really I've done that just for test purposes because it's more accurate than the gauge. That's the total mileage of the car. So I'm going to stick some pulses into it from the pulse generator. No, that's the wrong button. There we are. So that's 80 miles an hour. Let's go down to the speed. Yep, 80 miles an hour. Now the idea is when the car stops, it writes the current mileage to EEPROM. So if I stop the pulses, it should write the mileage there. So that pretty little pattern is just so I know that it's run the subroutine which writes the E squared. Right, got to take the scuttle off. This is the scuttle, bit that sits behind the bulkhead. So this is the scuttle off, and behind the scuttle is all the electronics and the wizardry that makes the car go. And this screw sits behind the dashboard, and there are two more that I have to get out. Right, all the screws are undone, so we should, if we're lucky, be able to manoeuvre this. I don't know what that was. I suppose I'll find out at some point. There. Until I've done this before. That's my cooling fan, just reminding me that it's switched on. There. That's the dashboard. And that is the speedo. So let's get removing. With luck and a following wind. There we go. So that speedo and trip meter is from 1983 or 1984 Ford Granada, and over the years it's just given up and it's just stopped working, so I'm going to fit the new one. So that brown wire is negative, so that goes down to my negative terminal, which is there. There. And this yellow wire is pulses. There. Slide the sleeving down while it's still a bit hot. Just keep it nice and trim. There we are. Everything's back together. Got the new speedo fitted. The car's up on the jack, so I can run the speedo without actually having to go anywhere. So let's start it up. Bit of choke. That seems to work, and it even saved the mileage to the EEPROM. So I think that is successful. I'm happy with that.